guys, welcome to 6 Minutes for Wednesday, November 2nd. I'm Jason Fulmore, SC Wrestle, and today we are talking the top 10 preseason teams in Alabama 1A, 4A with Alabama Wrestling Forum's Jaxon Bast. Jaxon and I talked this past weekend to set up all of these, and I think you'll enjoy our conversation and kind of what Jackson's take is on the top teams in the state of Alabama, especially with the new split between 5A and 6A. But today we focus on 1A, 4A. If you missed it from last night, we had a couple of college matches. Here's and I'm not sure why the audio doesn't work on this, but here is former Georgia Hammer Jonathan Chester wrestling heavyweight for the Citadel in a win over his Queen's opponent. And the Citadel went on to a 45-0 win. It looked good. It was on ESPN Plus. You should definitely go back and check that out if you have a Plus subscription for ESPN. And Little Rock got the job done over in Arkansas against in-state Awecha, I'm not sure how you say it, Awecha Baptist. Interestingly, the one win that Baptist got was actually from former Huntsville Hammer Brooks Scrimsher up at 197. But for the most part, Little Rock took care of business. That was the only win they got in that duel. We're off and running. Today, I think St. Andrews takes on Belmont Abbey up in North Carolina. And a ton going on. So be sure to check that out. Tune back in. Anyway, let's jump right into my conversation with Jaxon Bast and Alabama 1A, 4A top 10.
All good.
All right, Jaxon. It's really good to see you, man. It's been a while.
It has. I can't remember. I think the last time we talked was Deep South. We saw some really good action there, but I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, and you're doing a little bit of double duty because I saw your name pop up on the list of top heavyweights for the conference. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And you're doing this, and you're giving me your top 10. Do you feel a little busy?
No, it's definitely a little manic here in Bluefield, but I do what I can to manage.
Awesome. Well, we are jumping into the 1A, 4A top 10. And before we get to the 1A through the top 10 teams, you're giving us one top 10, not a dual top 10, not a tournament top 10. Like, what are you doing? Are you smashing them together? Is this mostly tournament? What is this?
So I would say it's kind of a match together, but I would definitely say it leans more towards the tournament side in the long run.
Okay. All right. And was there anything that, like, and going through the order, and I've looked at like returning points, and I've looked at a couple of different things. Is that kind of how you chose to kind of parse it out, or was there, like, can you give me like one or two big things that kind of had an impact on this order? What was it?
Yeah, I mean, really, it was the biggest thing was returning points for me. Like, I'd be looking at it, and an example would be someone like Pelham, who had 3 seniors, and they had a couple other guys, so they end up losing about half their points, but they still have some coming back. So really, I would say that definitely boiled down to returning points. And then, of course, I put a little bit of my own input in there. If I know, how does this wrestler perform in the postseason versus, during the season.
Well, and I think that's your knowledge background is really important. It gives it kind of the meat on the bones, and maybe you use the points as the bones, but you talk to a lot of kids in Alabama, you still have conversations with them, you kind of get a sense of what's going on, and certainly that has to inform in your top 10.
Oh yeah, there are a lot of kids who I didn't see wrestle. I saw results. A kid that's 1 through 4A was John Von Eschbach from JP2. I didn't get to see him wrestle until I went to the Fargo prep camp, and he really, really impressed me when I got to see. He had to wrestle Corey Land and Isaiah Poe on match day. So he he had kind of his hands full, but he still really performed well there.
Very cool. All right, so let's jump into the bottom five of the top 10 in 1A4A. And starting at 10 is St. James, Ohatchee, Bayside Christian, Deschler is number 7, and New Hope is number 6. So in kind of your opinion, were those teams close to one another? Was how close was like New Hope in to break into the top 5? Kind of just give me a breakdown of your bottom 5.
Yeah, so my bottom 5 were, I think the biggest one that may surprise a lot of people if they didn't go back and look, would have been the fact that Ohatchee finished number 2, and now they're down to number, I think I put them at either 9 or 10.
9, yeah.
At 9. And it mostly had to do with they lost 4 state placers / champions / finalists, and that really, really plagued them. I mean, it ended up just kind of being like, okay, all their returners were very low point scoring. We're talking 1, 2, 3, 4 points at most.
Right.
So it kind of knocked them down a couple of pegs. I still wanted to kind of keep them in the top 10 because, usually when you see success in one guy, the next year it really, really boosts the program.
Right.
So I would say that I can still see Ohatchee doing well and maybe even breaking into the top 5, but just returning right now, they're going to be kind of on that lower spot. Someone who really, really impressed me, though, was New Hope and all of their returners. Kids like Leighton Poole and the rest of that squad are really going to be important when it comes to, how that team is going to, almost improve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So I'm glad you brought that up because Ohatchee did finish in the traditional tournament 1 point out from Weaver, but you're right. They graduated a lot. Doesn't mean they're not going to reload. It doesn't mean they're not going to be back in the hunt again. But you do have some new faces, and you're going to have some kids have to step up and kind of step in to a position that they're not familiar with, and that's that. We'll see kind of how that plays out. So it certainly is interesting. Was there a team that was just outside the top 10 that you might want to kind of throw out to that you think might break into the top 10?
Not really. Okay. I mean, honestly, I would say that there's a pretty big gap between the top 10 and a lot of other people. Yeah. Even you saw my top 10 my bottom person was St. James. And St. James still has a state champ in Logan Hartson. So they're still that's still 22 points for placing that high and some activity points. They're still going to be, it's them and then pretty much everybody else. So there's kind of a gap.
Got it. All right. So let's now move to number 5, and that's Cleveland County. Cleveland County obviously is led by some of their lightweights, and then, but they've got a good squad overall. So what was it about Cleveland County that put them number 5?
I mean, like you said, they have a lot more returners than anybody else. And that's really, really what I looked at the most was the fact that they were returning such a big number of people. I'm trying to look in my notes real quick.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
They only graduated one senior, and they still had Shamar Hurd and Austin Mayfield kind of leading the pack for them.
Yeah, they do. Right.
I mean, Mayfield's just a freshman.
Right.
So,
and we already know his name. So,
yeah. Oh my gosh.
And if you get 2 champs down low, I mean, in a whatever, I mean, Cleveland County is a team that is sitting at 5. They could climb up.
Oh yeah, easily, especially with having those 2 finalists. They still have room to grow. And then you got somebody who was Russell Clanton. Oh no, that he graduated. That's not me. But I mean, you do have a couple guys. Trey Brown, who was their heavyweight last year, he scored a couple points. And then they had a lot of qualifiers who didn't really put points on the board for them. But we do know that once you kind of been there, it's easier to be better the next time around.
Right. You've had that experience, and now you have the opportunity to, okay, this is what kind of the expectation is. Now you need to go out and score some points for your team. So number 4 is Dora. And Dora is a team that actually returns quite a few points. And a team that finished in the top 10, but down close to the bottom of the top 10 last year. You certainly see them higher this year. So what was it about Dora?
Well, I mean, when I look at the points, obviously they had 4 qualifiers, none of which two graduated. They're all returning. 2 of them were placers. Damon Clayton, Delvin Taylor, Jonathan Foster, Jaden Rouse. And Jaden Rouse was somebody that we talked about as who we thought was going to be a contender for that title. Didn't really go his way at the tournament, but you add those points. I mean, you're competing pretty high in the thing. And for most of 1 through 4A, like I don't think anybody got above maybe 90 points.
Right.
But it was very much, very, very, very close on where it is. I mean, of course, they don't have I'm trying to think. 7A and 1 through 4A have the 8-man brackets, and Thompson was at like 192. So, you kind of see that
crunching in. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of depth almost. Like it's really competitive.
Right. And it's competitive, and this isn't a slight, but it is competitive with kids who may not if they were in another classification, they wouldn't necessarily be hunting for a placement or a state title, but they're going to play a huge role in 1A to 4A. I mean, in that team race, you could have a kid who's only in their second year or third year who could score you some super important points. That's going to determine who wins and who doesn't.
Oh yeah, I mean, like you said, it's not a slight, but you teach a very athletic kid. Even the top athletes that you see out there only have 1, 2, 3, go-to moves, and you teach a kid that, and you are very repetitive in his training. Like he's going to be really dominant.
Right. All right, so let's move on to number 3, and we've got Montevallo. And Montevallo moves into the number 3 spot. That's up from last year. You must see something as far as returning for Montevallo and what they have coming back.
I mean, yeah, the only guy they lose, their heavyweight, Cole Dennis.
It was unhammered, right? I mean, he was good. Yeah,
really, really good. State finalist, ended up being 3rd his senior year. But between Gavin Monk and Charlie Paraka, like I think they're returning quite a bit. They've got some younger guys, Sam Adams, Charles Adams, sophomore, freshman duo. They're coming back again. They've got a lot of room to grow. I think Monk is that big captain for the team coming into his senior year.
100%, right.
Had the opportunity to meet him this summer at the training camp. Looked absolutely phenomenal. A lot different than, honestly, what I saw in the film at State. He looks a lot cleaner, a lot faster. So I would say a lot of the returners, they look like they're growing. So I can see them definitely improving.
So the question I have for you really is this really a 2-team race? Is this really Weaver Asheville or for the title? Or do you think one of those 3 through 10 teams could break into it? Because Weaver and Asheville have been there. They have been really solid over the last several years, and they returned some really good kids.
Yeah, and I really don't know what it is with Asheville, because I always have Asheville really. I could see them competing for that number 1 spot, but when it comes, tournament time, it doesn't seem like they end up pushing it all the way through. Like last year, Ohatchee found their way, and then it was kind of like capitalized with Ethan, what's his name, the 220 state champ.
Yeah.
Ethan Thrash.
Right.
Ethan Thrash. I mean, it was kind of like the icing on the cake when Ethan Thrash took down Layden Olson, 7-5 in the state finals. That was kind of like, Ohatchee came to play. And I don't know if Asheville just kind of struggles in the thing. So I would still say that it's a very, very open race. And then we've seen Weaver also ends up competing with just about anybody who's there. Weaver isn't like they're a very dominant team for the most part, but they also tend to struggle. I mean, we saw it, was it last year where they fell first round of the AHSAA.
Yeah, in the duels. Yeah.
The duels. So honestly, that's why it's an 81, 82, 83 point race.
Right. Okay, so you've got Weaver at 1 and Asheville at 2. The last question I have for you as it relates to 1A, 4A is how confident on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the most confident and 1 being very little confident, that you've got the right 10 teams there, and how confident are you that you have them in the right spots?
So I honestly, with 1 through 4, I can't say that I am confident.
Okay.
You know, although there is kind of a gap, all it takes is that one person, because 22 points for a kid who knows how to do it, yeah, that's gonna blow a major margin. And all you take is 4 state champs on a team, and you won the tournament.
Right.
Like you wouldn't have to bring anybody else if you had 4 state champs. So imagine you bring everybody else. You've got a 9-kid roster going into the state tournament. They don't have to win it; they just have to place. And it could just be a team who has their mindset together going into the postseason.
Well, we're going to learn a lot over the next 6 weeks or so. Hopefully, we can touch base back again in about 6 weeks, maybe about the halfway point before we gear up and talk about 1A, 4A again. But just to recap, we've got Weaver, Asheville, Montevallo, Dora. Cleveland County is your 5. New Hope, Deschler, Bayside Christian, which we didn't talk about. Boy, good. Zeke Dernland down there. Number 9, Opatchee, and your number 10, St. James. So I like your top 10. I'm wondering, I think what you said is super important, how just a little bit of change can really swing a lot what happens in this classification.
Oh, yeah.
No doubt. All right, man.